Yuriko runs some of the cards that it does. If you're thinking about building Yuriko, this will help you make some choices. Now there are some cards that we are going to mention that not everybody plays, so you have some variety in what you choose. So let's take a look at some of the creatures. We do want to run some 0 drops because you want to be able to cast them over and over and over and really not have to worry about it. Plus, they're good for being able to keep you from having to discard because Yuriko is going to allow you to draw some cards. So we have Ornithopter and Phyrexian Walker. Then we have Changeling Outcast, which is a ninja. So this is going to help us because it is a ninja to trigger Yuriko's ability. Fairy Seer is in the deck because it helps us to scry. And with Yuriko, it's really all about what's on top of our deck, and we want to be able to do this as quickly as possible. So manipulating the top deck of our library is key. Fairy Seer allows us to do this repetitively because we can attack with the Fairy Seer, and because it has flying, it may not be blocked, and then we ninjutsu something in over top of it, and then later we can replay it. So this gives us quite a few uses of scrying 2 out of it over the course of the game, which helps us to bottom things that we don't want, like lands and whatnot, so we hopefully smooth out our flips and do a bunch of damage. 4th Bridge Prowler is repeatable. Again, same like Fairy Seer, we have it declared as no blocks, and we ninjutsu something in over top of it. The nice part about the 4th Bridge Prowler is we may have a creature get -1/-1 till end of turn, which can help to kill some mana dorks and things like that, so that we maybe could get in some damage to one player. Ginger Brute is nice because we can attack with it right away if it has haste, and then we can pay 1 to make sure that it's not blockable except by creatures with haste to ensure that the damage can connect, and then we can ninjutsu something in. Mausoleum Wanderer is great for us because it has 2 things that happen for us. First, we can sacrifice it and we can counter something if we need to, but it is also a flyer. Moth Dust Changeling is played in Yuriko a lot of the times because it is a changeling, but then we can tap an untapped creature we control and it gains flying until end of turn. And this can be a creature that just came in, doesn't have to be one that has haste. It could have Summoning Sickness, and then we just tap it, so it gives us a little bit of use. So DC's Faithful is fantastic for our deck because we can exploit it, we can sacrifice a creature, and then when we do exploit it, we can return a creature to its owner's hand, so we can sometimes bounce some things on our opponent's field, or maybe even our own, so that we are able to replay them. Gives us some options. Thieves Guild Enforcer is nice. It is going to enter the battlefield, and then it's going to cause each opponent to mill 2 cards. So, and because this is repeatable with our ninjutsu effect, where we can ninjutsu something over this and replay it later, that's going to help us. And then as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in a graveyard, it is going to get +2/+1 in Death Touch, which makes it harder for our opponents to block it. Thousand Face Ninja, which has flying, which is good for us. And then when it enters the battlefield from our hand, if it's attacking, we're going to create a token that's a copy of another attacking creature, and that enters tapped and attacking. So we're going to ninjutsu this guy in, and we'll be able to copy something, which is good. Universal Automaton is just a changeling, aka a ninja. Wingcrafter Being is good because we can pair this with something like, say, Yuriko or one of our other creatures, so that we can try to get it in because it will then give that creature flying, and Wingcrafter would also have flying. Moon Circuit Hacker is played in Yuriko a lot of the times because when it deals combat damage to player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card unless Moon Circuit Hacker entered the battlefield this turn. So if you ninjutsu'd it in, then you draw a card. So that's not bad for us. A little bit of card draw is sometimes helpful in Yuriko. Orcish Bowmaster is in Yuriko now because it actually partners well with one of our other ninjas and can make an infinite combo. So Orcish Bowmasters, when it enters the battlefield, it is going to deal 1 damage to any target. So if we have Orcish Bowmasters and say Sakashima Student, if Sakashima Student has coming in and is copying somebody else's dockside, if you're able to make enough mana to go positive, you can ninjutsu over and over and be able to ping the table and take everybody out. Silver Fur Master is kind of iffy in Yuriko. Some Yuriko decks run it and some do not. The nice part about it is the reduced cost of the ninjutsu ability of your Yuriko effects. But the problem is buffing up the rogues and the other ninjas is not really that relevant. And a lot of the ninjas that we play in Yuriko don't have a high activated cost. So some decks run it, some do not. Skull Snatcher is played because when it deals combat damage to a player, we can remove 2 cards from that player's graveyard. from the game. So essentially you're exiling things out of their graveyard. Tetsuko is running Yuriko to make a lot of your things unblockable, because a lot of our creatures are power or toughness of 1, which is going to help to get them through and be able to do a bunch of damage. Thassa's Oracle is running Yuriko because even if you're not actually winning the game with this yet, that scrying effect, which you're usually going to scry 2 to 3 to 4, is helpful in Yuriko, and you can just bounce it with a ninjutsu effect and replay it later to get that. So even if you're not winning the game off of a Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation or Thassa's Oracle Tainted Pact, it is good to play when you have it. Miss Syndicate Naga is nice because when it deals combat damage to a player, then we're going to create a token of it, so this is going to help us to make more ninjas. Miss Blade Shinobi is played in Yuriko a lot of the times because when it deals damage to a player, we return a target creature to its owner's hand. So if we had Tetsuko out and then the Miss Blade Shinobi can't be blocked, we can end up bouncing some things to our opponent's hand. Opposition Agent is running Yuriko for obvious reasons. You want to try to prevent other people from searching their libraries and be able to steal those things yourself. Prosperous Thief is run in some Yuriko decks because when it or a rogue creature deals combat damage to player, you make a treasure token, so it helps you to make a little bit of mana over the course of the game, which Yuriko doesn't really need. It's a very low to the ground deck. Prosperous Thief is played in some, but not all decks. Ingenious Infiltrator is played so that when it deals combat damage to player, you draw a card. It is another decent ninjutsu effect because it's only blue and black. So you'll notice a lot of the ninjas that we play have a very low ninjutsu cost, and that is done intentionally. There's lots of ninjas we could be playing in this deck, but we want to play the ones that are going to be the most cost effective to ninjutsu in. And some of these have a high CMC so that they do damage, like Ingenious Infiltrator, if we rip it off the top, is going to hit our opponents for 4. Sakashima Student is just very versatile. It can copy a lot of things. It copies something on our opponent's field, so it's a very versatile card and it pairs well. Wonder is good because you can start your opening game and then discard Wonder to get it in the graveyard and then give all of your things flying as long as you control an island and Wonders in your graveyard. Now, a lot of people wonder why Street Wraith is run in Yuriko, and that's not necessarily because it's a creature. It does help because it's a 5-drop, so that's a nice bomb to hit. The Swamp Walk is not really relevant because we almost never are playing it. We play Street Wraith because we can pay 2 life, discard it, and draw a card. That's why Street Wraith is played. It's helpful to draw cards at some point. Shadow of Mortality is a huge bomb, hitting our opponents for 15. The other reason that this is in the deck, though, besides being a huge bomb, is it is actually playable. Because you are going to be getting attacked as the Yuriko player, your life is going to go down. And Shadow of Mortality says if your life total is less than your starting life total, this costs X less to cast, where X is the difference. So if you lose 13 life, then Shadow of Mortality costs 2 black to cast for a 7/7. Not bad at all. It is actually a playable card, and then you can start swinging for 7 at people. Let's take a look at the sorceries that Yuriko runs. Yuriko runs Imperial Seal. We need to have tutors so that we can manipulate and get the cards on top that we want, some of our big bombs. Same thing with Personal Tutor. Scheming Symmetry. Usually you're going to choose somebody that is going to have the least impact, and you're going to be getting a bigger bomb. So you might, if you're able to, choose somebody that you know you're going to kill with that bomb. So if you are able to, maybe use Scheming Symmetry and you get Temporal Trespass on top, and then that player that you allowed to also search might also die. Demonic Tutor, Diabolic Tutor, all tutors to help you. Agadeem's Awakening is great because you can get things out of your graveyard that have different converted mana costs, X or less. So if you name, let's just say 3 or 4, you're going to get several things out of your graveyard back to the battlefield. Step Through is good. It is a bomb for 5, but really, we don't even use it to return 2 creatures to the owner's hands. We can. Sometimes that is helpful, but this wizard cycling part is really why. For 2 mana, this is a 2 mana tutor that allows us to go get Thassa's Oracle. Seagate Restoration, a bomb. Sometimes you might draw cards with it, but usually you won't. It is a bomb, or you can play it for the backside as a land. Temporal Mastery is good for us. You might pay the miracle cost to actually take an extra turn, or you're just going to do a bunch of damage. Temporal Trespass, also a bunch of damage, and you may delve a bunch of cards away and actually use this to be able to take an extra turn for 3 blue, possibly. Instants are kind of what you would expect. We've got a whole bunch of suite of counter magic. Brainstorm is played though so that you can put cards back. So if you have Shadow Mortality in your hand, for example, you Brainstorm and then you put that on top so that you're able to manipulate the bombs that you're going to be doing a little bit. Chain of Vapor, bounce something to an opponent's hand. Demonic Consultation is one of our combo pieces so that if we get to a point where we have these pieces in our hand, we don't even need combat, we just do the Demonic Consultation win. Mystical Tutor, obviously to tutor for something, same thing with Vampiric Tutor. Limduel's Vault is really good in Yuriko because it allows you to make piles of cards. So you go 5 cards deep and you take a life, you either keep them or you don't. And then you go another 5 and so then you would take 2 life. This allows you to go several piles deep and try to find some big bombs to really do some damage. And this is fantastic in Yuriko, especially if you are going to be able to get 2 or 3 Yuriko triggers. You definitely want to go searching and try to get as much damage to your opponents as you can with those triggers, and this really helps you do that. Tainted Pact is obviously run as another combo piece with Thassa's Oracle. Dismember is nice because, yes, it's 3 mana, or you can pay the 2 life or 4 life and some of the mana to be able to do -5/-5 to a target creature, which helps to remove something on your opponent's side. Deadly Rollick, obviously get rid of something. Mindbreak Trap, another way to remove things off the stack and do it for free. Snuff Out, another way to do stuff, then get rid of stuff for free, but it does also 4 mana. Misdirection to redirect a spell. Submerge to put a creature back. Commandeer is a gain control, so you get to steal something with it, which is nice. Consign Oblivion is actually playable in Yuriko, but the nice part about this card is when you flip it off the top of Yuriko's ability, you are going to count both sides of the card. So you're going to count the 2 mana from Consign and the 6 mana from Oblivion, and you're going to hit your table for 7. And Consign is actually playable. For 2 mana to bounce something, it's actually playable. And the Aftermath cost is not really relevant for the Oblivion side, but it is a playable card. And then Dig Through Time, you can help you manipulate your library around by delving some. If not, you're going to hit your opponents for 8. Now you will notice most Yuriko decks are very, very light on artifacts, and that's because this deck is so low to the ground. Usually you keep a hand in a Yuriko deck that's maybe 2 lands, maybe 3 lands, and a 1-drop or 2, and you're good, and you're going to just do everything you need. So that's why there's not a lot of artifacts in the deck. You do run Mox Amber because it's easy with Yuriko to have it online. Grafdigger's Cage is here to help shut off some things for our opponents. Sensei's Divining Top is really relevant in Yuriko because it helps you to manipulate things around your deck, and that's all this is all about. Curse Totem really shuts off things for your opponents and not as much about you, and same thing for Null Rod. We don't really have very many artifacts, so having Null Rod on the field is going to hurt our opponents more than it's going to hurt us. Scroll Rack is key because if we get to a point where we have, like, say, Shadow Mortality or one of our big bombs in our hand, we can Scroll Rack it back to the top of our library the next time that we do the attack and get the trigger, and that's going to allow us to repeatedly control the bomb that we're hitting. Cover of Darkness is played in Yuriko because you're going to choose the creature type Ninja, which is going to give them all fear, making that they cannot be blocked except by artifacts or black creatures. So it's going to make it harder for your opponents to block and allow you to get the damage in quickly. Our lands in Yuriko really aren't anything spectacular. They're what you would expect. There are a couple lands that you don't see played very much, like Mutavault, because Mutavault could be turned into a creature, which in this instance, it has all creature types. So Mutavault, for one, could be turned into a ninja. We run Otawara for the obvious reason that it's removal, and it's a land as well if we need it to be. Shizo, Death Storehouse, is run because we can pay a black, tap a legendary creature to give it fear, so we can tap Yuriko and give Yuriko fear. Mystic Sanctuary, some Yuriko decks have cut just because we don't run a ton of islands, so it's good in sometimes and bad in others. And Mystic Sanctuary requires 3 islands that you have when it enters the battlefield to get the ability, but if you do, the nice part about it is you're going to be able to put a target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top. So if you did use one of your big bombs or you had to discard it, this is one way to get it back on top of your library and hit your opponents for that damage. If you have any experience playing Yuriko, if you have other suggestions of cards you have found to be really relevant in the deck, we'd love to share those, so let us know what those are in the comments below, and we'd love to hear how this deck functions for you.